Good morning and welcome to and welcome back to the Foreign Correspondents Club. I'm Christy Lou Stout, an anchor correspondent with CNN and also a proud correspondent governor here at the FCC. And we are so pleased and honored to have with us today here in Hong Kong a very, very special guest. Mahbouba Seraj is one of the world's most prominent women's rights activists. She also happens to be a Nobel Peace Prize nominee for this year, for 2023. When Kabul fell again to the Taliban, Mahbouba refused to leave. She continued her work in Afghanistan, fighting for the rights of women and girls in her country, the right to have an education, the right to work, and the right to not be erased from the public space. Now, moderating this 30-minute conversation, we have my friend and colleague, Anna Coren. She has very deep knowledge of Afghanistan. In fact, she just won an Emmy for her work, a report about a 9-year-old Afghan girl who was sold into marriage. And as a result of her reporting and the work of activists, they were able to free the girl. Her name is Pawana. Anna's going to moderate and lead a conversation about 30 minutes long with Mahbouba. Afterwards, she'll open it up to Q&A. I do want to quickly give a very proper shout out to the staff here at the FCC because they have really scrambled from a late night last night to an early morning to accommodate this very special guest. So thank you, Team FCC, for helping to make this happen. But without further ado, let's welcome our very, very special guests, Mahbouba Seraj and Anna Coren.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear us? Yes, fantastic. I should probably get my notes first. Can I just say a huge thank you to my friend and colleague, Christy Lou Stout, who made this happen. Because without Christy, we would not be here today. A huge thank you to Didier for getting Mahbouba and making sure she was here on time this morning. And yes, to the FCC staff for turning around so quickly. So thank you to you all. And to all of you for coming to the FCC on this wet, rainy morning. But thank you. So let's perhaps give a bit of context to this incredible woman. I had been in Afghanistan in July 2021 for CNN covering the US withdrawal. I returned and I saw this woman's face on the television as the country was imploding, Taliban taking over, everybody fleeing. And I thought, who is this woman? And it's like, that's Mahbouba Seraj. And I thought, I've never met Mahbouba Seraj. I've been covering Afghanistan for many, many years. I've never met her. So we organized a Skype call. And I listened to Mahbouba from CNN control room. And I just had goosebumps because of your passion, your commitment to your country. We all saw those images of people, fleeing, trying to jump on planes, that absolute utter desperation. But this woman stayed. And before we start talking, why don't we show a clip of a documentary that we have made on about Mahbouba. So let's play that trailer, please.
The last 20 years, the girls of Afghanistan were promised that they can do anything and everything that they dream.
Here in Afghanistan, education for girls, it means freedom.
Joined now by Afghan Women's Network co-founder
Mahbouba Seraj joins us from Kabul.
I'm hoping to cover a story about the Taliban.
Is this what you're hearing?
Yes, it's a decision, but it's an excuse. When dreams of a nation, especially dreams of 18, 19 million women of this country, were completely wiped. And it's getting wiped every single day in the ways that nobody can even imagine how hard it is. I was not thinking that US is going to be staying here forever and ever. But how can you just pack up and leave? What about the consequences? This is my message. Release them immediately. To those world readers, I'm going to say really shame on you. And thank you for giving me the time so I could say this to the world. We are disgusted.
My heart is really breaking.
از دید طالب زن یعنی ماشین تولید، زن یعنی برده.
ما را به دست کسایی سپردن که اونا را خودشان تروریست میخواندن. اگه خدای نخسته نمیباشه متوجه خدا نکنه.
We are born and we are going to die. So if I am supposed to be dying here in Afghanistan in the hand of a Talib, hey, that's what's going to happen.
Sorry, I get very emotional watching that. So I'm going to hand it over to you. We made that documentary with Mahbouba last year. We went there in March to film the reopening of schools. 90 minutes in, it didn't happen, but we'll get to that. I want to know why you stayed. Why did you stay when everyone else who could fled the country?
I stayed in Afghanistan. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. I want to say good morning to all of you. Right now, my heart is just somewhere else, and it's broken into millions of pieces, again. And I am so glad to be here, so I can tell you some things about what is really happening in my country and what's happening in that part of the world. The reason why I stayed in Afghanistan is something that I always had in me, and that was with the time when the Russians came to Afghanistan was the same thing. Or I wanted to bear witness. I wanted to bear witness. And I kept on saying to God, please keep me alive. And there's a reason why I'm here. And I can just watch it. Because I want to bear witness and maybe tell the world one day, because everything passes. But I can tell the world one day what really happened in Afghanistan. How we really felt, what was really done. At the time when the Russians were there, when came in, and the communists came in 1978, was the same thing, and I went to prison. And this time, again, it was that. So I wanted to bear witness for the women of Afghanistan, to finally one day tell their story to the world, who they were, what they were all about, what they saw, and how their life kind of was interrupted, like the way it has been right now. And they're completely, as human beings, as women, as mothers, as sisters, as wives, as women of a country, they're erased. And then when a Talib looks at you on the streets, they don't even see you. And if you look at them, like straight in the eyes, they look at you and they say, lower your eyes. You're not supposed to look at me like that. It's like, excuse me, really? And the strangest thing is, like some of the girls were saying it, the world knew what they were handing us to. That is the part that I'm actually bearing the witness. Because we have to find the answer to these questions. Why this happened? Why? And I don't think from now on in the world we should really go and start, fixing the problems that they are there. We should ask the questions why these things are happening and stop it from happening.
Can I just make sure that everyone can hear Mahbouba? Yeah, you can? Yes, okay, fantastic. You were very angry when the world left. You felt a great sense of abandonment. But at the same time, Mahbouba, the US and the international community couldn't stay there forever. They'd been there for 20 years, propping up a corrupt government that didn't have the support of their people, that didn't have the support of their military, because they all just put down their weapons and surrendered, if not defecting to the Taliban. So how could the West continue in a country that wasn't even supporting the government that the world was propping up?
You know, this is a very good question, and I never asked the world, nor the West, to stay there forever. Never. That was not the intent. And I'm sure that was not the intent of a whole lot of their generals and the people who are actually running these wars. But there is ways, different ways of getting out of a country that you've been involved for 20 years. The way they left Afghanistan, like the hot potato that they did, that was wrong. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have left, but the way they left, that was so wrong. And the mistakes of it is not something that the world is going to find out and say, well, in a few years, we're just going to be over. No, it's not. Mistakes like that are not going to be over this easy. Mistakes like that makes damages on its way as the time goes on, and it takes forms, different shapes and forms that you will not even dream of it. That's what happens.
Your anger aside, you were cautiously optimistic, hopeful of what the Taliban could offer.
Yeah, yeah.
Explain that to us.
That was, you know, because of the government we had. You know, for 20 years with the two presidents, we had some of the worst governments in the world. The most corrupt. I mean, Afghanistan, as far as the corruption chart was concerned, was like bottom or the third country in the world because the corruption was so bad. So in a country like that, with all of that corruption, I was thinking, dear God, please bring something that will be a bit different from this. Because nobody, from the billions of dollars that came to Afghanistan, if you think the people of Afghanistan used that for them, for their lives, no, it didn't happen. It only was for the rich and for the bunch of corrupt people that were in the government that they got richer. They got richer and richer and richer. And today, they cannot even stop, they don't even know, some of them, the number of the houses they own everywhere. In Dubai and Doha and India and God knows where in the US. So this is what actually was catered to, this bunch of people. And I was hopeful that a change, any kind of a change, is going to come and is going to be different. And with the Taliban, at first when they started, it was not really like the way they are now. It was not like this. There was a lot of hopefulness. I mean, this whole thing came with like step by step of becoming from bad to worse, to worse, to worse.
Well, let's talk about that, because the Taliban, you know, they came to power, they promised the international community that they had evolved, they'd modernized, this was Taliban 2.0, they'd learnt their lessons from the 90s when they were in control for those 5 years, where we saw the public floggings, the executions, the absolute erasure of women's rights, and they said, no, this time it will be different. We want women to be part of society. We want women to be educated. We will have an inclusive government. What happened?
Well, they realized that they can use the woman as an actual, you know, a weapon of their discussion with the world of what they can get. So that's exactly what they did. They started using women like that. And women's situation in Afghanistan became so political. Like, there was no longer a question of women, human rights, and looking at the woman as a human being. It wasn't that anymore. It just became like a, you know, like a political, how shall I say, pawn in the hands of the Taliban. You don't give us this, you don't give us our membership in the United Nations, well, we are going to stop. That's exactly what happened in December. Well, we are going to stop, you know, the girls from going to university, and women cannot work anymore. I mean, that happened in front of me. I mean, it happened when I was in New York and talking in the Security Council, and this thing happened in Afghanistan. So it's like, you know, this is what they kept on doing. So this Taliban 2.0, whatever it is that they were, and it makes me laugh anytime when I think of it, we knew the Taliban haven't changed. The one thing that, however, that changed in Afghanistan from the first time that the Taliban were there until this time is the women of Afghanistan. The women of Afghanistan have changed. The women of Afghanistan became more educated. The women of Afghanistan found their way. The women of Afghanistan found their voices, and they could raise it and to listen, and the sisterhood was being built in the world with the women of the world. So the women of Afghanistan were different. And the reason why the Taliban or the story of Afghanistan is still on the three most listened to stories still is because of the women of Afghanistan. It's because of what we do, it's because of the fight that we have put up, and it's because of the support of the human beings like you all over the world that are behind us and hearing us and putting the story out and being there for us all over the world. All over the world, I can say there are women and there are some men that they are 100% with us. And that's what is making it possible for all of us to raise our voices and make the world listen to us.
I was with you last March in Kabul for the start of school.
Yeah.
And the hope and excitement, it was electrifying. Like it was you know, palpable. You could feel it.
I know.
It was these girls that didn't care, you know, the Taliban were in charge, but they were going to school, they were going to get an education. Knowledge was power, and that was what they had and they were going to have. And within 90 minutes, the Taliban issued an edict, cancelled secondary school, and the absolute utter devastation that those girls felt. It was tragic. And the Taliban said this is just a temporary measure. They were wearing improper hijab, have to improve their uniforms, we have to improve the security. But that was over a year ago.
I know, and it was all excuses. There was nothing, you know, the schools, never in Afghanistan, the boys and girls were never going to the same school anyways. They were separate, you know. The hijabs, Afghan women have always worn hijabs. Always. They've been the most, you know, covered up, the most, you know, the kind of women that they always respected hijab. They never wanted to, you know, to do anything like throwing their hijab out or anything like that. This was all excuses that they used for the world and to themselves and whoever that was listening. There was nothing wrong with it.
And it was cruel. It was cruel to get their hopes up, to even allow them onto the school grounds.
Very cruel. Very cruel. And it broke the hearts of those girls so badly that until today, they honestly cannot get their lives back on track. They really cannot, these girls. They are broken. I cannot tell you the number of the depth of the pain, the frustration that the Afghan young girls and women feel in Afghanistan. I cannot tell you. They are in such a despair, and at the same time, you know, these are very, very sweet, nice, obedient, amazing women that they put up with so much hardship from their husbands, from their fathers, from their brothers, from their families, and they've been always there, and they always stood up, and they always did what they were supposed to for the goodness, for raising their family, for their children, for their parents, and the respect that they have for them. And for them to be so heartbroken like the way they are now, I mean, their spirit is gone, it's completely. And I am so worried about the effect of this thing that they are feeling, this letdown, this despair that they are feeling. You know, what is going to happen to these women in the future? These women are supposed to be the mothers of the future of Afghanistan. They're going to be mothers in the future. These girls are going to be somebody's wife. These girls are somebody's daughters already. They're somebody's sisters already. They cannot function anymore because, you know, psychologically they're under such a pressure. I mean, just imagine, as I always say, you know, to everybody, just imagine your daughters, your sisters, especially your daughters. Can you imagine them not being able to go to school? I mean, just imagine. And then you tell them, no, stay home, and your brother can go to school, but you cannot. because you are living in a country that does not believe you're even a human being. It's like, how do you explain that? How do you explain that to a young girl? And then when you do tell them that, what is going to happen to that girl? And the consequences of something like this and the life of that girl, what is it going to be? Do we think it's just going to disappear? No. This is going to be with that human being for as long as she lives.
It started with the secondary school ban, then came the burqa law.
Yeah.
Then came the ban in parks, gyms. I don't know how many Afghan women get to go to a gym, but gyms were also banned.
Hammams, the public baths.
The public baths, of course. And then fast forward to December, and it was the ban on university for women, and then the ban of women working at NGOs.
Right.
I mean, this is a gender war that is being waged by the Taliban emir.
It is. It is a gender war. And we keep on telling to the world that this is a gender apartheid. So like any apartheid, we have to start making laws to stop this and to get the people who have done this, you know, in the future. None of these situations is going to last. That I can guarantee you. Like anything else in the world that hasn't lasted, this is not going to last either. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know what kind of a damage it's going to do. But there is going to be one day. There is going to be one day. I might be alive, I might not. But there's going to be one day when the women of the world and the women of Afghanistan are going to stand up in front of a few people and say, this was an apartheid, and you did this to us. So you have to pay, and you have to answer to us, why did you do this? So that is something that, you know, I'm apart from other things, this is also one thing else that I want to live for, and I want to keep it alive. So one day, at least, they could get their answers. They could get something. I mean, this kind of an injustice being done to a bunch of people, to a whole race, to a whole gender, for God's sakes, to women, 20 million of us. It's not that we are doing this, you know, to 4 people. 20 million women.
Half the population.
Half the population of Afghanistan. This is being done to.
Well, let's talk about the Taliban that you now live under.
Yeah.
I mean, you deal with the Taliban every single day. They allow you to run your shelter for abused women and children. All these women, they've encountered sexual violence, domestic violence, and Mahbouba runs the only shelter still standing in Afghanistan. Yeah. Why does the Taliban allow you to operate, considering their ban on women working at NGOs? You are an NGO.
I know.
You are a woman.
and it's very, very pretty strange, you know, if I really tell you this. There is a way of doing things in Afghanistan, and that I call it, and I say that, you know, just be like low profile, as low as you can. You know, don't make any noise, any fuss or anything around, and then keep on doing what you have to do. You know, slowly, but quietly, but keep on after it, and keep on doing that. So the Taliban, they have never said that they have allowed me to do this. No. It's like there's nothing like this has ever been talked to amongst us. But has never been talked to that when they came and they wanted to close my shelter maybe at one point or another, and they realized that they were standing in front of this woman that is ready to give up her life but not budge a centimeter from where I was standing because of what I believe in. That they realized. So from that day onwards, we kind of knew, you know, who they were and who they were and where they were, and who was I and where I was. So we knew that. And besides, right now they know that they need us. They need my shelter, because when the police, all of the 19 districts of Kabul city, now they are connected with my shelter. Because any woman, anybody, anywhere that they see anywhere, on the streets at night, that they have gone out of the house, you know, there are things, this is a city, Kabul, so things do happen to women. And the police get them at night, they don't have a place to keep them. So instead of, you know, putting them in their barracks or wherever, they bring them to my shelter. And my shelter is there to help. So in a way, they have realized, and they're grateful for that. But of course, they're not going to mention that either. It's just that by knowing that the kind of a service that I'm offering them, so at least I'm there, and I keep on doing my work. And that is because I stood for what I believed in, and I wanted to be there because that was the only hope for the women of Afghanistan to have this place to be safe.
I love that Mahbouba says she keeps a low profile, and yet she's on, you know, international media talking. She gets nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, really low profile, Mahbouba.
No, you know, it's like low profile in Afghanistan maybe means something entirely different than low profile in the rest.
But how do they feel about the attention that you receive outside of Afghanistan?
I think it has kept my life. It has kept me alive, really. I don't think they were actually saying it, but as one of the anchor people from one of the television stations, Khaled Zakaria, you know, he was interviewing me one day when he said, Ms. Seraj, I think we're keeping you alive in Afghanistan. I said, yes, Mr. Zakaria, you definitely are keeping me alive in Afghanistan because of the attention that the world, you know, is giving me. And I mean, I was on the news continuously. So for a whole year, that's what I did. I talked to the media. And the media coming to Afghanistan, the second they arrived, the first door that they knocked on was mine. And the first person they interviewed was me. And I could be there for everybody. So and that is something that I really appreciate. And they appreciated my take on the way Afghanistan is, so my point of view. And they wanted to hear that first before anything else. And I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, that's what happened, you know.
The emir of the Taliban is Habatullah Akhundzada. He's a wild card.
Yes.
He is more extreme than most Taliban thought he would be.
Yeah.
And now you have this division within the Taliban. You have him in Kandahar issuing these edicts, and then you have his ministers in Kabul now speaking out against his direction. So could we potentially see the Taliban splinter? Could there potentially be an overthrow?
You know, anything is possible. And one other thing that maybe some of you know, being in the business that you are in, you know, CNN and all of that, and news and all of that, you might know. Actually, the Hibatullah in Kandahar actually raised an army of his own. About I thought it was a lot more than 2,500, but they're saying it's 2,500. I think it's more than that. That it's an actual army that has been raised, because there was a kind of a suicide attempt to his life at some point, and that's why he raised that army. So he's being kept safe in Kandahar as much as possible. Now, what is going to be happening from this, and how the whole thing is going to turn out to be, is anybody's business. At this point, as anybody's guess, because we really don't know, you know, what will be. But the division between the two, absolutely they are there. I honestly could not believe that now I'm hearing it, that the Haqqani Taliban are actually a better group of the Taliban than the Taliban. It's like, really, Haqqani? Is Haqqani becoming, you know, human now again? And I mean, they were in the most wanted list of the world, but right now apparently Haqqanis are like, you know, are fine little angels.
Yeah, they're the moderate side of the Taliban. The Haqqanis, who have like a multi-million-dollar bounties from the US government on their heads.
Exactly.
And now the Taliban that the US government would like to see running the country.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and anytime when I see Sirajuddin Haqqani's hand, have you seen the watch in that man's hands? Oh boy, beautiful. And I always look at it and say, haha, Mr. Haqqani, where did you get that watch? But you know, this is what is happening in Afghanistan, truly. So we don't know who is going to be next, who's going to be what is going to be done. And I know the world is absolutely baffled by everything, and I know they really don't know what to do. But then nobody has asked me what we should do, because I do have some suggestions, and I could have shared it with them, but they didn't ask, so I'm not going to.
we need to get you in front of the absolutely. I guess we talked yesterday a bit about the positives of the Taliban, which I kind of scratched my head, but you seem to think that there are a few positives. I guess one of them would be the security across the country. You know, people can now travel, they're not getting blown up, there isn't a raging war, as there has been really for the last 40 years since the Soviet invasion in 1979. But there's also been an uptick in terror attacks launched primarily by ISIS.
I know.
Islamic State.
Absolutely.
And there was just an attack outside the Foreign Ministry a couple of days ago. This is the second one. I mean, they are targeting the Taliban. They think the Taliban has sold out.
Yeah, yeah. ISIS really thinks like that. And then also, we should not forget one thing else. In Afghanistan, the whole situation right now is being used by other groups that they are involved in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not only the problems is not only with the Taliban and what is happening with the people that are outside in the Western world this way. No, it's not like that. In Afghanistan, there are ethnicities, there are different groups of people living, there are different tribes of people living, there are Tajiks, there are Uzbeks, there are Hazaras, and the Pashtuns, which are the Taliban, and not all Pashtuns are Talib. So these are all of the factors that they are playing such a big role in Afghanistan. Because, the way in the north is one thing, the south is one thing, the west is one thing else, and the south is something else, and the east is something else in Afghanistan. So all of this is creating, a huge number, a huge thing for Afghanistan, and is being used. Everybody like ISIS is using it against, with ISIS is the whole of Khorasan being involved right now, and Khorasan really, who is Khorasan? Khorasan is the Tajiks of Afghanistan. So, and what is happening to them? So it's really a big mess.
But I think the US, the international community, are probably most concerned, is Afghanistan going to become a safe haven for terrorism once again?
Absolutely.
The leader of Al-Qaeda was taken out in downtown Kabul, not far from where you live, last July.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just ISIS. There are, as you say, many other terrorist groups, jihadist groups, that are now, I guess, getting a foothold in Afghanistan. So will it become another safe haven?
So you see,
pose a threat to the West? The
reason why I keep on saying, that was a mistake, that was something, an action taken in such a hurry, and nobody thought about it, of what they were doing, is because of this. Because this thing happening right now in Afghanistan is not a magic that we all find out. No, these are the actual happenings of history from before, and they were all there. The makings of it was right there. And if you do create a void like the way Afghanistan situation has been created, this is the result you get. The world is not going to go out of its complete, turning circle. I mean, the way it does things. It keeps on moving, and things do repeat themselves. And if you have the situation ready for other groups, for other things to be, living and become alive and breed in any situation, then it will. And then the consequences are with the ones that are around it, and they look at it and see, well, what did we do? That's why I keep on saying that I am very disappointed at the way the West handled all of this, because they didn't think of this, and they should have.
Mahbouba, you are on ISIS's radar.
Oh yeah. By the way, actually a friend the other day told me that also, and sent me a little clip, and said, well, you are on ISIS's radar. And I said, okay. What am I supposed to do? He said, well, get some people to protect you. So I said, what do you mean get some people to protect me? He said, well, we send you people to protect you.
This is the Taliban saying that they will send you people.
The Taliban are going to be sending people to protect me. I mean, truly. I mean, I'm like, yeah, you are? Why? So you're sending people to protect me, and I said, I'm really very afraid of these Pashtun men coming to my life and staying at my door, and then controlling every action of mine, and they're going to do that because I'm a woman, and they think any woman in the world is their rightful property. Like, no, you cannot. But yeah, I'm not doing it like the way I jump into this whole idea. I will do it. Yeah, I have to get them the house first and the little room first, and then I arrange it with my friends first, and then the office first.
You're putting them off.
trying to. But I know I will have to. I will have to get these guys. You know, so there's going to be 2 Talibs from now on protecting me in Afghanistan.
Does this concern you? But by the sounds of things, you're not that concerned about dying.
No, I'm not. Dying is not something that you know, is going to happen because it happens to me alone. No, dying is the most natural process of living. For God's sakes, you know, if we live, we die. So that's, and I'm living fully, and I'm going to die. So that's understood. There's nothing.
Well, you're turning 75 in May, so no, I think you've got a lot more living to do. The Taliban, Mahbouba, are obsessed with gaining international recognition. They want a seat at the United Nations. They want their central reserves, 9 billion of them, unfrozen. They want access to them. The Foreign Minister, Motaki, he made that plea in an op-ed in Al Jazeera a couple of days ago. But he said that the Taliban is ready to talk to the United States, but they made no concessions whatsoever. The Taliban weren't going to give an inch.
No, not on the case of the women. That's the part that they don't want to give an inch. Everything else, I think they will. But there's nothing else, you know, that the world wants to really talk to them about it. There's no conflict as far as that's concerned between them and the world. And the one question that you asked me before about what are the positive things that the Taliban have done. So I was just, you know, like, for example, these guys, they are, and I'm sure they are telling the world that, you know, you didn't give us the money, but that did not stop us from taking Afghanistan small little steps, but still steps to, you know, to go forward by raising taxes on people on different ways and trying to get some money in our hand to make it, you know, to make it work for the, you know, to build the country in a way and make things better. Because I told you the city of Kabul has become really much cleaner, and it is the truth. You know, we have a mayor right now that really works. But as I was saying, you know, I will never be able, and I told that to the news of the world, not to the Taliban themselves, although to some people that I'm working, I have told them, that I will never be able to talk about that, you know, never to the world about it and
about
be a witness to this, about the positive things, because as a women's activist, as the one that I'm standing behind my sisters in Afghanistan, I can never say that until the day that they have done, they'll continue doing what they're doing to the women of Afghanistan. So that to me is like, you know, they're never going to hear from me.
But female education is a red line for the international community.
Absolutely, it should be.
But who's going to move first? I mean, Afghanistan is going through an economic, a humanitarian crisis. You know, what, more than 2/3 of the population are below the hunger line.
I know.
You know, they need aid. Foreign aid has dried up. I mean, this is a country in crisis.
Yes.
And the Taliban may say, well, we're trying not to be aid dependent, but they need aid to feed their people.
Absolutely.
They're starving.
I know they are.
So who's going to move first? Is it the Taliban or the international community?
You know, you might tell me that I'm being extremely optimistic about this whole thing, but I do believe the Taliban are going to make the move, because they will have to. Otherwise, a whole lot of us are going to disappear. So I have a feeling, and I'm hoping, and I'm praying that the Taliban are going to make the move as far as the women of Afghanistan are concerned, and maybe give them the, you know, the rights for education and what is actually rightfully theirs to continue going about their life.
That would be pretty drastic.
Oh my gosh, and how? And that is going to change, actually, if they do that. It's going to change the face of the whole politics of the world.
You have said, Mahbouba, that, you know, we won't be able to change this government. This government is here to stay for now.
That's what I'm thinking.
But
yeah.
perhaps we can change the way that they govern.
Absolutely. We have to change the way that they are governing. They cannot be staying here and governing like this way. No, it's not going to happen. So if they are going to be staying, which is something that the world wants, by the way, believe it or not, that the world wants the Taliban to stay, okay, fine. You brought the men, you want them to stay, okay, all right. But then they cannot be governing this way. They have to change their way they govern.
You are quite controversial in your views, Mahbouba, because you believe in dialogue with the Taliban.
I do.
That is not something that a lot of women's rights activists believe. They believe you have to completely cut them off, starve them, and then hopefully they will come to the table. You say that is the wrong approach, that you need to have dialogue. When you were nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize by this Peace Institute, there was a lot of criticism from other female activists.
That's right.
Who said you're a sellout, you are actually working for the Taliban, you do not represent us. They went so far as to contact the Nobel Committee and ask them to revoke your nomination.
That's right. That's right.
How did that make you feel?
Terrible. Terrible. I mean, can you imagine just working your 20 years of your life, not only in the past year and a half or 18 months that the Taliban are there. I'm there since 2003 working with the women of Afghanistan. I've raised, generations of them actually. And today they are turning around and they say that I'm not on their side. That's not the truth. That's not what it is. It's just that I don't want another war. I don't want another civil war in Afghanistan. Civil wars, we've had them for 44 years. This is the 44th year of war in that country. I cannot and I will not allow another year of war in that land for all of the young people of Afghanistan to die. I don't care where they are from. I don't care whether they are Uzbeks and Tajiks and Hazaras and Pashtun. They are Afghans, for God's sakes. How do you allow something like that? But by them doing this, they're fanning this whole split that has happened amongst the ethnicities of that country. That is wrong. We are all a part of this beautiful quilt of a country which is called Afghanistan, with our different nationalities, with our different identities, with our different ethnicities, with our different looks. Dear God, you just take a look at the map of Afghanistan. You'll be amazed at what the kind of beauties we have in there. Every coloring that you can imagine, every feature that you can imagine, from the red hair to all of the Chinese and Japanese-looking people, to all of the white people, to all of everything we have, for God's sakes, and different shades of brown that we have, of beige that we have. I mean, we really are like, oh my gosh, look at that. Anytime when I look at it, my heart goes out. So you cannot have a country like that and say, well, no, we keep on fighting and warring amongst each other because that's the way to do it and that's the way the world is pushing us, or some other people because of their personal benefits. And it all happened. It's not that the whole of Afghanistan wants that. I have people in that country who absolutely love me. I know that because I love them. Love and respect is not something that happens from one side. It happens from both ways. And if you really feel love for a bunch of people, for a group, that's exactly what they feel towards you. So that's where I am with my people. But then again, there are some ethnicities in Afghanistan that for some strange reason, they've become my enemy. Like the Hazaras. It's like, for God's sakes, Hazaras can't become my enemy. I have Hazara grandmothers. I have Hazara cousins. How is that possible? I grew up with them. You cannot tell me that. That's wrong. And as far as Uzbek is concerned, I have a grandmother who is Uzbek. So what else? As far as everything, is like, no, excuse me, you cannot do that with me.
You were born in Afghanistan, you grew up, you were educated in Afghanistan. You fled when the communists came to Afghanistan. Yeah. You moved to the United States for 26 years. Right. 2003, that is when Mahbouba returned. You, as you say, have been working for your people ever since. Yeah. You will never leave your country, despite the fact you have a US passport. You can live in the United States. You can live wherever you want, but you don't want to.
No. I love that country more than anything on the face of the earth. I love Afghanistan with every fiber of my body and of my being and of my soul. I am a part of Afghanistan. My great-grandfather, the Iron Emir of Afghanistan, is the one that actually gave the statehood for Afghanistan. We made it a state. I know, I have everything of that country as a part of me. I am so attached to those people. I'm so attached to that country. It's not even funny. the 20-something years that I lived in the United States, and I lived like a perfect citizen, because that's one of the things that I do. You know, anywhere I live, I want to live the best I can. And I did that. But the second I knew I could go back to Afghanistan, I could not wait. And that was 2003 when I realized that, you know, Karzai is coming and the world is in Afghanistan and Taliban are out. So that's when, you know, it took me a little while to get my house and everything in order and send my dog someplace, you know, to be safe. But then I went to Afghanistan and I stayed because that's what I thought I should do. And when I went over there, I didn't go because there was a job waiting for me or an NGO that I went and joined or the government. No, I just packed up in a bag full of medication. That was the only thing I could think of getting at that time with me. And then that's it, and my clothes, and I went to Afghanistan because I'm going home. And that's what it is for me. Afghanistan is my home. And I don't want to be anywhere else but Afghanistan. I can travel all over the world. And dear God, I have the best of friends in the world. But my home is Afghanistan.
I think that it's now an opportunity for all of you to ask questions, if that works. So let me hand it over to the floor. Who would like to ask some questions? Christy.
Thank you so much. It was such a fascinating conversation. So insightful and full of just incredible energy. I have a question about something that was brought up during the discussion. It seems that you've been protected on one hand because of your high profile internationally, but also because of the shelter that you run in Kabul, and that the Taliban need you and your shelter when they have women who they don't know what to do with, they hand them over to you. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your shelter, how large it is, how it is supported, what type of support you offer, and the women who stay there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My shelter was actually created in Afghanistan in 2003. The whole violence against women in Afghanistan is not something that has been brought in by the Taliban alone. Afghanistan, unfortunately, as a country, is that type of a country. The men are very, very cruel and mean towards their women. I don't know why, but they are like that. So this shelter was created at that time. And it was created by a young lady by the name of Maria Kremi, who is a good friend of mine. She's a fighter, that woman, and she's in the United States right now. So then she started it, and I came to Afghanistan, and her and we met, and we started working on this shelter. I was not supporting her directly from the inside work, but outside I was doing it with support and with whatever that I could, and talking to the government and all of that. Anyways, so that shelter started taking women from the streets of Kabul. And the women, first of all, in Afghanistan, the women did not know where to go. They had no idea about the shelter. So they would just go on the street, and then that's it, and then the police would get them. And then the police would find the shelters that we have, like the way it's happening right now also, because now there's no information about shelters, and there's none but the one that I have. So so then they would be brought in. So the money for the shelter was given to this shelter first by the Finnish government. The Finland government gave them the money, we were very grateful to them because of doing that. And then after Finland, then there was that they gave the biggest part of the money in the beginning. And then it was the UN Women. At that time it was not called UN Women, it was called something else, and then now it's the UN Women. So then, and until today, we are supported by UN Women. So the world gives their money to United Nations, and United Nations, through UN Women, gives the money to us.
But there used to be, sorry to interrupt, there used to be dozens of shelters around Afghanistan.
Absolutely, 27 altogether, shelters all over Afghanistan. And they were covering, women from everywhere. From those 27 shelters, now there's only one left, and that's mine. The rest of the shelters, and I want to tell you this, were not closed by the Taliban. If that's the news you're getting, they were not. The rest of the shelters were closed because the people who owned the shelters did not want to stay in Afghanistan.
A lot of these people feared persecution. A lot of these people thought they were going to be locked up, imprisoned, if not worse.
So that they were afraid and they left. Yeah. So that's why there are no more shelters. But to me, and I'm not saying this because I'm such a, what shall I say, like a very courageous person, and I'm not really afraid of my life. No, that's not the name of the game here. But the name of the game is one thing, and I've always said that to the women of Afghanistan. You're either committed to do something or you're not. That's simple. If you're committed, you do it. If you're not, then you won't. Nobody's going to force you, really. I am committed, so there you go.
Sorry, there's a question up the back, and then to you, Emma. Oh, so, again.
Thank you very much. It's fantastic to be here with you, and we all support, I think, education of women all over the world, but my question is, should we not be educating the young boys to respect the women? Is that not where it starts?
No, definitely. But the thing is that right now...
And how do we do that?
Oh, yeah. Nobody has stopped the education for boys in Afghanistan right now. Right now, the boys are actually going to school. As I'm not saying that, they're all going to school. There are still, quite a lot of them that don't have any access to schools. But the boys have not been stopped from going to school.
I think she's talking culturally. How do you change the male view towards women so that they respect women, they respect their mothers, they respect their sisters, so that we stop the domestic violence, the sexual violence that is systemic in Afghanistan?
But this is a two-edged,
two-edged sword.
Card. I mean, what do they call it? A knife. What the question that you ask? Believe it or not, this group of the young boys that right now they have the opportunity to become educated in Afghanistan, their sisters are sitting home. The result of something like this could actually backlash. The result of something like this could actually make or put the lives of the future generation of the girls and women in that country in danger. Because the way we think that is going to work, it doesn't work usually. Because by giving education to the boys, you're giving them more power. So when you're giving them more power, and then they have another sex, right in front of them, another gender, which is female, and they're not getting anything. So what do? That's the human nature. You want to practice your power on that gender. So that's when, trouble starts. So this has to be really thought of very, very, very well. And one of my fears for the future of Afghanistan is this, because we don't know, what kind of an effect all of this machoism is going to have. Don't forget, machoism is extremely catchy. And then especially if it's a young generation that gets it, oh boy, it's like it can go on and you will never know how to control it. So these are all, social behaviors of the world and of Afghanistan and of the people that are becoming like such a how shall I say, so important and so dangerous for all of us that we really have to think of it, and think of it very, very thoughtfully of what kind of a generation we are going to raise.
Emma.
Thank you. What an honour to hear you this morning. My question is, I'd love to learn more, and please forgive my naivety now, is what's actually happening to the young women and girls? Are there sort of secret schools or secret study groups that are happening? How are the older women sort of rallying? Maybe you could just share what's happening.
Absolutely. This is something I want to share with all of you. Please don't believe in the words that the world says, Afghans don't like education for their girls. That's wrong. The people of Afghanistan, they love their daughters to be educated. All of them. All of them. Any ethnicity, I don't care who. So, from the same way that the first time that the Taliban were in Afghanistan, that the people of Afghanistan started having these underground schools, the system of education going on, still the same thing is happening right now. Right now with one other possibility, and that's the internet, which it didn't exist in those days, but today it does. There are internet classes, there are internet classrooms, there are internet education all over Afghanistan. And that is because the young people of Afghanistan are so hungry and so thirsty for knowledge that they're going to get it from anywhere and everywhere that they can get their hands on. I have started with the women that I'm helping, because I'm also helping a bunch of people with the cash money that my friends, they send it to me, and I get it, and I
give these handouts to these families in need.
I do give handouts, for the families, because they need cash. They have doctors' bills to pay. They have to go to the doctors. They have to do millions of things that only cash can answer. So I give them the cash, and they can all do that. Some of these people, however, that I've seen the potential in them, they have started, with me helping them. Every home is a school. There is a movement starting that every home in Afghanistan is a school. We actually want to start education in the homes. Every home is a school, and to these women, what I do, I pay them money to kind of set up a school system in the area where they are, and I support them. I hire some teacher for them and pay them, $50 or $100 a month, and then they are getting the neighborhood, all of the people around them. So these people, they say, I'm going to go to that neighbor's house, and we are going to go and study Quran. So what I have done, I haven't even given them tables. What I've given is those wooden things that you put Quran inside, for people to read. So that's what they have. And they have the Quran actually always open in there. And other books that they are studying, on top of it, they put that. So anytime, if there's anything happens, they fold that and put it under the Quran, and they read the Quran. So this is, believe it or not, is working. And this is how we are doing it. Right now, because I am so afraid that if this whole desire or whole wanting of these people for education, if it disappears, then we're really going to lose Afghanistan completely.
These underground schools are no doubt, they definitely are popping up, but then the founder of Penpath, which was also a system of schools operating not just in the city but in rural areas, he was arrested yesterday by the Taliban. He has been confirmed. He's
a young Pashtun man. He has been going, all over Afghanistan, and he's talking to the girls, to their fathers, and to the girls' schools everywhere, and they got the man and they put him in prison. But from what I read last night, I haven't read my messages this morning, but from what I understand, that they are not going to hopefully keep him there. And to tell you the honest truth, something like that, then it scares me also. Like right now, going back to Afghanistan, just the thought is kind of going around my head, like, what is this? They have started a new way of approaching and getting all of us. It's like, what does that mean? One never knows. I swear to you, one never knows about this with these people. What is going to be happening?
Yes. Ladies over here.
Excuse me, it's such a pleasure listening to you, and having people like you around the world just gives us all hope.
Thank you.
And if I was on the Nobel, if I was in the Nobel Peace Committee, I don't know whether you've got the Nobel Peace Prize yet.
Not yet.
Well, I would vote definitely for you to get it.
Thank you.
We'll find out October.
No, a little earlier you said they didn't ask me what we should be doing, and so I haven't told them. So in the next year or two, what would be your recommendations to the West and their approach to the Taliban? What do you think could be done? What would be your recommendations to the Taliban? I mean, kind of obvious, but what would you like to see happening in the next year or two? And when you go back, we'll all be praying for your safety.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I do have I should say I do have an image in my mind of what I really want to happen in Afghanistan. First of all, the West has to kind of do a bit of thinking, and just for a second and say okay. And this is something that the West, I'm sorry to say, but usually they really don't understand it very much. East does understand that, but the West does not. There is an arrogance in the West. That arrogance is what is actually destroying everybody. you know, don't be so arrogant. We don't have to be so arrogant. We can learn all the time. So if we could just take a few minutes and think, okay, the US can say, all right, these Taliban, for 20 years, we fought them, we killed them. They killed us, of course, but we killed them also. And the number that they were killed is like, compared to how many they killed, is unbelievable, although a lot of Afghans were killed. And so they were, and they were told that the people of these cities are their enemies. So the country that right now they went in and they call it home, actually it was their enemy. So now, not only that they are told by their bosses and everybody that, you know, we told you to come and kill these people, but right now, when you're here, you can't kill these people. They're okay. Just, you know, don't only kill them, but protect them too. And these boys are young boys with nothing up here. I swear to you, nothing. I mean, they were kept from learning, from advancing, from developing all of their lives. But they are young, and they have their hormones raging, and they have the young blood in their body going like that. So all they really think of is to kill, because that's what they've been told. So now we have to start working on that and changing that whole mindset in a way so that we can work with them, talk to them. Otherwise, what are we going to do? You know, the world cannot create these bunches of terrorists, quote unquote, and let them loose on the world, like the way ISIS is right now. They have been created by the West, for God's sakes, and now they're let loose. And now what am I supposed to do with them? And what is the world supposed to do with them? So these are the things that we really have to sit down and think about it. We cannot run the world like this. I can promise you that. Not like this. We have to be careful of what we have. We have to be mindful of who we live with. We have to be mindful of humanity. We have to be mindful of people of all races, any race. There's no superior race and inferior race. This is all baloney. So let's live equally for who we are. We have one earth. And that earth, we damaged it so badly that I don't think how much longer it's going to be with us. So come on, a bit of humility, huh? It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Really, it's a good thing. Maybe that's what we should tell all of our Western friends. Come on, guys. Love you to death, but you're too arrogant for me.
I love Mahbouba in full rant. Do we have time for, or is that the same question? Okay. Okay, maybe one more question. Yes, the lady up the front. Yes.
Thank you for your talk thus far. I guess you speaking of this stark divide between women and men and this like huge separation in personality, in their rights, their education, like where they are in life, that leads me to think about like marriage and the future of the population to come, as that ties into the political system and like the constantly changing like nature of the Taliban and the region. What is kind of like your take on marriage and how that's working now in the space and like the future of it?
Yeah, I love that question, because especially when it comes from a young girl, it's like, oh, fills my heart. You know, marriage is still on. You know, it's not a how shall I say? It's not a démodé thing. You know, that nobody gets married anymore. No, people do get married. I'm sure they're doing it in a different ways. There are different marriages right now in the world. It's no longer what it used to be. It's that and plus a lot more. And I am becoming to believe, although, you know, it depends. You know, some parts of the world, I think, you know, maybe a love marriage is the one that works better. But in some part of the world, I'm beginning to believe that maybe arranged marriages are not a bad idea. You know, especially if the parents choose, you know, somebody really wonderful for you. But of course, if somebody had told me that at the age when I was ready, I would have said, you can go and jump in the lake. No way.
But there has been a severe uptick in child marriage. And the Taliban do believe that once a girl reaches puberty, that she's ready for marriage.
Yeah.
The economic crisis has forced many families to marry off their girls to support the rest of the family.
You know, this thing, and I know, please forgive me if I don't know how I'm going to sound, but I have to say this, the truth that I feel in my heart, because that's who I am. I cannot, you know that.
I always get a bit scared when this happens.
So the Taliban, for example, one of the things that Taliban will not do, they will not marry a girl by force. They will not. Because that hijab in Kabul, which is, you know, the two things that happens in a marriage, that, you know, between the man and the woman, that is such a must in their eyes, in the eyes of the God, in order to make that marriage right. So they will never do it on a woman that does not want to be their wife. So that they don't do. Child marriages, however, that they don't really care. Child marriage is they can marry as young as 12 years old. They don't really believe in the age of marriage or anything. So now let's look at the other situation. The situation of a country that is like, in this conversation, I know it's not something that, you know, it's not only for an Afghan to say, it's a conversation that the world can have. So, you know, there is the poverty, there is the hunger, there is the way the whole society is going, there is the children are dying, there is nobody around to look after them. Their parents that are supposed to be their protectors, they are the first ones that they are actually kicking them out of the house. So this girl, once on the street, or once outside of the house, where is she supposed to go? Or where can she go? The one place that she has, she can go and live on the streets and become a prostitute. That's one way. Really? Is that an answer? Or she can have a husband that is older than her, but a husband that will look after her, will will protect her, will give her food to eat, and will give her protection. So what I'm trying to say, in the world, when we look at the needs of humanity, and every one of us, wherever we are, we really can't think of it like the way we are. We have to think of it as the way everybody is. And once you involve a bigger group, then you start thinking differently, according to the needs of each one of the people, depending where they are, how they live, how much access they have, and what they can do. So it's a very difficult question.
Sure, it's very hard to put ourselves in their shoes, but we are hearing horror stories of what is happening in your country. And it is our responsibility to keep this story alive, because, you know, I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago before you were coming to Hong Kong, and you said, I feel like the world has forgotten about us. Yeah. I feel like we are now invisible. You know, Ukraine, you know, other issues in the world, you know, they do. They take over the front pages of the paper, and this is relegated to the back, if at all. So thank you to all of you for coming today and for caring about this woman and about Afghanistan. And Mahbouba, you are a marvel. You're a force of nature. You're an inspiration.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for all your kindness and your support. I am so pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.